Okay, everyone, at 6 o'clock, I'm going to call the meeting of the Maple Run Unified School District Board of Directors for February 2nd to order. It's, as I said, 6 p.m. This meeting is by Zoom and by central office location. A couple of quick announcements. Nina will be running late. She's going to try to log in by 6:30. Jack has also got a previous commitment and he will be here by 7. And each of them will come as soon as they can prior to those times, but that's the times that they gave me. So the second item on the agenda is the agenda review. I would like to add one item under new business. It will be item 8C. The topic is MOU for elementary teachers to substitute during prep period. That'll get explained when we get to that section for those of you that might not understand that. So may I please have a motion to approve the agenda with that added topic?
So moved as amended.
Thanks, Al. Is there a second?
Second.
I think Joanna beat you to it. Okay, any further discussion? All right, I'm going to take a roll vote. Al?
Yes.
Alicia?
Yes.
Katie?
Yes.
Joanna?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Grant?
Yes.
Susan?
Yes.
Nilda, yes, thank you for that. Next item is, can you please all join me for a pledge of allegiance to the flag? If I can find my flag. All right. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you for that. Next item on the agenda is the visitor section. If a visitor is attending remotely and they wish to speak, they should put their name in the chat. Who is our techie guy? Is it?
We have Martin here. Martin's
Okay.
here.
Has anyone placed their name in?
The announcement just went out, Nilda, too, so.
Okay, we'll give it a minute. Is there anybody present in the room with you, Bill, that wishes to speak?
No, we don't have any visitors, Nilda.
Okay, so it's Peter, Martin, and Aaron, and yourself in the room, right?
Along with the Northwest Access cameraman.
Oh, okay, cool. All right, has anybody put in that they wish to speak?
No?
All right, I usually read the visitor section, but if there's no one that needs to speak, I don't think I need to read it. Going once. Okay, move on to the next item on the agenda. That is the consent agenda. We have 2 items. We have minutes from the 19th and the 24th and 26th of January in the media packet. Does anyone wish to pull out any of that information for discussion? Hearing none, we can accept the consent agenda as submitted. Next item is item 6, reports to the board. There's a budget presentation that was, I think, dropped into our agenda late today. And I am going to turn this part of our program over to Bill, and we can have some opportunities for discussion as we move along.
Yes, thank you, Nilda. Nilda, how do I sound with my mask on? Am I okay?
You're okay.
Okay, so I'll keep it on. Last meeting, we talked a little bit about communication strategies for presenting the budget information to the electorate. And so before I get into the presentation that we sent out today, some of the things that we talked about, and I've worked with Nilda on this, is we're gonna use, of course, have to use what we're required to by statute, so we'll have an annual report and our information night. We've also, something that Maple Run has done a great job with in the years past is putting a flyer in the messenger, and that's being worked on right now by the team, the leadership team, giving some updates about the schools and aligning that to the mission and to our core values. That's hopefully going to be hitting the week before break out to the messenger, and Dino's leading that work for us. At the same time, and the annual report will be up as well. In previous years, to find the annual report and find information on our website, it hasn't been very easy to do. And so one of the things we're going to do, we're going to show you a draft of a new web page that will be on our site that will be linked from the top level. So when you go to our website, and I'll have Martin share the screen in a minute, but I want to talk about these different strategies, Martin, first. We want it very easy for people to be able to find budget information. And so that's one thing that we're doing we're trying to revise that and put more information and put it in smaller chunks so people are able to get it without having to go through a whole PowerPoint presentation or a whole video or a whole annual report. And a lot of school districts do this in Vermont, and across the nation. So we're trying to get things chunked into smaller sizes. The other thing that we want to do, that Nilda, Martha, and I will be partnering on, is creating about a 10-minute video that is basically the information night information, but that can be put up on the website. And I will share a link to 2 school districts that do this right now and have this year's up. And it's not PowerPoint on video. It's talking with some slides, but back and forth, and really talking about what's the district trying to do and what resources does the budget need to be to provide what the district's goals and mission and vision are. And that video is something that we can use at information nights if we want to, and if we want to use it at the next board meeting, just to get people primed. It's a nice 10-minute piece. So that would be up on YouTube and that. We'll also, I'm suggesting to the board at the next board meeting on February 16th, I believe it is, that we have a question, that presentation about the budget, and a question and answer session for the public. So instead of having reports, it's like a mini forum, and we can allow to have some discussion back and forth about the budget. And then we'll do the same thing, basically the same thing on our required information night that's within 10 days of the election on the 23rd. As we all know, that's during our vacation, so we'll miss a lot of people, so this gives people 2 chances, 2 weeks before and a week before, to be able to see the same information and ask questions about the budget. So really the 3 things is, we've also revamped the presentation a little bit. It's pretty standard. I really want to thank Martha. She does the majority of the work, as she always does, especially around the budget figures, but we're really trying to tell the story in this way. Who is Maple Run? What's it look like? What's our configuration? What are our goals? What are we trying to do? And so that's in this presentation. And then what are the changes from this current year budget to next year's school budget? And then how does that impact the tax rate? And then what are the articles on the warning? Which that's pretty standard what we have to go through anyway. So what I want to do is kind of go to the website. So Martin, if you could share the draft board website. This is not linked anywhere right now live. We hope to do it starting tomorrow. So that looks a little different than
Yeah,
one.
you can scroll down.
Just scroll down. Just scroll down. All right. So what you'll see here, you see all those blue items to the left, where if you go to the district overview, click on that plus, Martin, you can start to see information about our schools. You don't have to go through a whole report, right? You can decide what you want to look at. So if you want to, I won't have Martin open any of these up, but you could have the enrollment over time or the letters that are in the annual report. If you go down to like the budget time, I'm just going to keep opening these up, Martin. the budget timeline is what you've seen before, about how we put together the budget, then the budget documents that you approved at the last meeting. And then the next thing, because we had discussion about this as a board, and I thought, and I've seen a lot of other districts do this, how are you using your ESSER funds? We call them pandemic funds, because we felt that was easier, not everyone knows that acronym. So you'll see some information there. That's also in the presentation. You should see that in the presentation as well. You should also see the process that we use to develop a budget, and then what the additional request is, how did we get from this year FY22 budget to the FY23 budget. It's not every little item, it's big chunks. And if you looked at that, and you look at the presentation, we're aligning it with the mission, the core values, and then the envisioning plan work of social, emotional, mental health, and well-being. That's one area. Engagement and attendance, which is the second area. And third, improving academic achievement. So we've linked those things together and in the presentation. And those are the same areas that ESSER has had us on, because that's what's driving the work right now. So on the right-hand side, Martin, I don't know if that's just for us seeing that, if you just move it. You'll see what we're going to have is and scroll up a little bit. You'll see right there, you see understanding the Vermont funding system. That's a nice YouTube that explains how taxes are calculated. We did that with you the first meeting in January, but that's from the Vermont school boards. It's a nice animation. It's about 10 minutes. Under where it says board meeting dates, I would put an information piece there about having a forum at the next board meeting and the informational meeting. The budget supplement is what goes into the messenger. And then just information about running for a school board if you want. And down below, right now it's just an image, but where it says MRUSD Board of Directors, we would put a link to the video with the YouTube piece in there. So that's how we're trying to improve our website presence, and this would be linked right off the top MRUSD page. So we're still working on exactly where that's going to be, but it's either going to be up in the menu bar or it's going to be right below the images where you see buttons. But maybe Martin, you can take off the sharing right now and we can just see if anyone has any questions or comments about the website improvement. Nelda, do you want me just to call on people as they raise their hands, or you want to do that?
No, I was gonna call on her in a second, but I just wanted to make sure that Erin notes for the minutes that Jack has arrived somewhere along the way.
Okay.
Thank you. Joanna.
Hi. So this looks awesome. Everything looks really great. I guess my question or clarification question is, I see that you have it on the MRUSD website. Will you also have links to all of this information for the Fairfield Center School, for St. Albans, City, SATEC, and BFA? I think the more places that we could get this information out, I think you could also put it on the Fairfield Town Clerk's website and City and Town's website as well. And I would love that 10-minute video that you plan to put together, or if there is, another blurb that we're planning to put together that has the information clearly and succinctly, that we could be able to share that on each of the Facebook pages for the schools, the PTO websites for each of the schools, and if we wanted to be sharing them on our, Facebook pages or whatnot, just to continue to get that information out there. I think that'd be great, especially if we were messaging the same information. Thank you.
So we're planning to use social media to put this out and let people know about it, know about information nights and all of that. Twitter, our Facebook, and other avenues as well.
Right.
So
There's no legal limitations to that, right?
No, we want to push it all right back to the same website. So we're, as Joanna was right on point about keep it the same information, but push it out as many places for people to come to that site. So yeah. That's the plan.
That's great. Thanks, Joanna. Anyone else have any comments?
Okay, so then Nilda, I think I'll move over to the presentation. I'm not gonna go through this slide by slide. If there's edits and you see something, email us, let us know. We don't need to go through that right now. I'll tell you, it's still somewhat drafty. We took away, one of the things that we really wanted to point to, that working through this, it became very evident, and it's on slide, well, let me just go through the overall piece.
Yeah,
As I said before, we're trying.
I mean, we're way ahead here as far as the meeting goes, so it's worth taking a couple minutes to go through the presentation, I think.
Thank you for slowing me down, Hilda. So the idea is, some of this you've seen in years past. For those of you that have seen these presentations, it's really like, who are the members of the board? What's the agenda for the night? But we're really trying to link to what are we trying to do and what is the ask of the community in the budget. To really kind of concrete, like that's the big idea of this whole presentation. What are the schools in Maple Run trying to do? What's our ask? So if you can really think of it that way, I really tried to divide this up to that and try to simplify. I have to thank Nilda. A couple times when she saw it, Nilda, thank you, we're good on pushing, hey, simpler. So if people have ideas, I'm always open for good feedback on how to do that. You will not see what's happening at each school campus that you've seen in years past. This is what's happening across Maple Run. You'll see in there's a Who Are We, which talks about our enrollment at each campus and pictures of each campus, but not the report from each campus. And then what we are collecting from each campus, and it's going together, is after the goals, we go over the district mission and core values and the goals of ESSER. We really talk about we have a slide each for the social, emotional learning, mental health and well-being, the engagement and attendance, and academics. And what we've been putting forth, almost 99% of what's in here is from ESSER, 100% of it's from grants. So there's a little bit from consolidated federal grants. But it really is pinpointing these areas because these have been the areas from the envisioning work from the pandemic relief funds. Obviously, there's things here that I would say that aren't on these slides talking about how much money we get with that and how it's supported. From there, we start to go into a budget overview of what's the current ask for this year, and then how that's broken out.
Are you showing us any of this, or are you just going to talk about it?
I'm just talking about it, but I can show it if that helps, Nilda.
Well, I mean, I think it would be good for us to just get a flavor of it.
Okay. So Martin, if you want to bring that back up.
So the whole idea was not to have, like death by PowerPoint,
Yeah.
so that there's not a whole lot of, reading to people and that sort of bullets and quick chunks of information.
Just go a little slower as you go through it, Martin. People can kind of catch up. This is one of the big changes here. We're just talking about how many students at each campus. Before, just listed the campuses and the number of staff members we have. This is a slide you've seen before that's just pictures of the different campuses. This is new in here, really directly linking our mission and core values. And then this is one that I want to thank Alexis White and John Muldoon. They created this for the slideshow you saw in the fall on the envisioning update. These are the goal areas of ESSER. You can go back one. So those are the goal areas of ESSER. Those three big areas. And then this is the work, as I said, about 99% of this is funded through the ESSER grant, but how it's supporting us. So you can see things like additional nurse staffing, supplies for cleaning and PPE, additional staffing to respond to academic, social, and mental health needs caused by the pandemic, professional development across MRUSD, and then the big upgrades to health and safety at all our campuses. And then in attendance and engagement, we're really working on Universal Design for Learning, UDL, professional development leadership. There's a leadership group working on that that's collaborating across school districts in Vermont. We have building substitutes that are really, if we hadn't had them this year, we would have a lot more openings than we do because they've actually been put into permanent positions, most of them. Folks working with our families, and we have that both at SACS and BFA, we increased that. And the alternative program that you've heard from Alexis. And then in the area of academics, Martin's working on moving it. We have pieces that you've heard about our curriculum development. We put additional teachers for academic loss. There's 4 FTEs of those. Gotta just change that 4 in that FTE. Remote learning supplies and materials. This really went into the spring of 2020 and the beginning of 2021 school year. More resources, tools to support the envisioning plan and remote learning, as well as supporting more assessment of learning. And then the building substitutes go here as well. They're both doing engagement, attendance, and academic work. So from there, we're starting to present the budget and have what we have for our current, the FY23 budget. So there's a total there and the estimated spending per increase over FY22. Then you start to see this broken out into big areas. So we have our HR components, which are salary and benefits, and our contracted services are our outside contractors that work for us. The tuition, transportation, and property services, so taking care of our buildings. And then you see supplies and equipment and dues, fees, and debt. So you can see the total budget there. Well, the next slide is one that we've seen it in other districts. Martha and I have seen this and thought it was a good idea of taking this year's current budget, and you've seen this in your budget drafts. How did it grow? We didn't put every line of everything, but we connected it to the current salary and benefit increase with our current existing staff. It would be that 1.8 million, what we have in the budget, and then what you see in each of those areas: social, emotional learning, mental health and well-being, engagement, attendance, and academics, what we're asking from the local budget. And then increases, really a lot of this is increases in other areas, but it's supplies, utility increase that we're forecasting. So that's at 156 to get to the $64,797,075. So we thought that might be an easier way for folks to understand what went from where we are to what we're proposing. And then you just see more of a breakdown from that pie chart, more into a table format of our expenditures. And now we're starting to get into calculating the tax rate. And I really debated here about how much we wanted to have a tutorial, because some of you had asked this, about how the tax rate's calculated versus having a resource that someone could go watch that to explain how we get to the $1.42 at 88/100. That's not even said correctly, sorry. And then this chart to me is one that you've asked for the past 2 years that I've been here. What's been the history of the education tax rate? It's hard to take it, because of how CLA affects it, it's hard to do a history of the CLA, the total tax rate. So you can see pre-merger, we had tax rates in the 3 entities from $1.42 to $1.46. And this year is the first year of no incentive, merger incentive, and we're at $1.43. So the budget impact hasn't really changed that much. It's gone up and down. I don't want to say it hasn't changed, but it hasn't changed that much. Then you start to see here, what's the impact with CLA, and how does that compare to the previous year, and the increase or decrease in Fairfield. So you see everything from 2.3 cents in the city to a negative 1.4 cents in Fairfield. And the next one, we wanted to really show you this, that if you took the tax rate that we had this current fiscal year and the tax rate of next fiscal year, how did the MRUSD budget affect the tax rate? it drove it down by 6 cents. The CLA is what then brought it up, and the overall impact of the tax rate. So from this current year to what we're estimating, and now you just start to see tables in each municipality of what the estimated increase would be based on a home value. So you'll see that for city, and then town, and Fairfield. And then this next one, I'm not going to stay really long, it's just explaining each article on the ballot. And then about voting and where to vote, and how to early voting, absentee voting. So that's the presentation. I would take any questions or comments, and then I want to give some information about other districts.
Anyone?
And I promise our video will not be that PowerPoint shown to the audience that way.
Quick comment.
Sure, Grant.
The discussion of CLA reminded me that there were a couple of recent messenger articles that I think also help put that in context. I wonder if it'd be possible to link those as well, if they're publicly available.
They are available. I'm sure we can get them.
Okay.
And
I think there were two. There was one on, you know, what the general expectation was for tax rates. That I think was back in November, December that I'm thinking of. And then I think there was one specifically on CLA.
yeah, I can talk to Katie about that too. She's great. She's been very fair to us as a reporter and helping that. I also want to thank her. She's been doing a lot of school articles, and there's probably been an article, if you saw in our media packet, we're getting 1 or 2 a week about good things going on in the schools. So Messenger's been really helpful with that as well. And all the colleagues across the school district who have basically been talking to her to give her the information.
Any other comments? Did you guys like it?
Yeah, I thought it was great. I think it's great.
I think that we're just trying to shake it up a little bit. I mean, some of the slides are pretty standard because the information is standard, but I have a couple comments, but they're more like housekeeping and formatting comments. So I'll just send those to you.
That'd be great, thank you. I'm sure that we haven't gone over with a fine tooth comb. And I'm sorry that it came out this morning, but it's really with everything, we really worked on it since like Friday.
I mean, it's just standardizing, like if you're going to say 9 FTEs, say 9 FTEs. If you're going to say 9.0, say 9.0, have it be the same way all the way through. So that's one thing I picked up on, a couple other things too.
I saw that too.
Somebody just raise their hand. Jack.
I had to unmute myself. Because of COVID, would it be wise or unwise? I'm bringing this question up as just an open question. Would it be wise to put something in saying a dollar amount that being involved with COVID and trying to address, you know, having more staff to do this and more staff to do that and more expense because of this, more expense because of that? Would it be wise to say because of our work with safety, health, and educational issues caused by COVID, the budget has increased by this much? Would that be good or bad to state?
Just 1 second, Al. Bill, can you address that?
Well, I think that's a question for the board. Can we calculate it? Yes, we can calculate what we spent out of ESSER and what's in the you know, the increases in the local budget, there's much more in ESSER than what the increases in the local budget. It's about 900,000 in the local budget. It's 13 point, I'm just doing off the top of my head, so to get you a yearly cost, I'd have to go do some work with, well, ask Martha to do the work. I can't say that I'm doing it.
So that number's available. Okay, that's good to know. Let's think about that. Al, what were you gonna say? One moment, Grant.
I'm not sure that's a good idea to do that. Number one, because the cost is not going to be lesser when we're out of COVID. Because whatever tax we tread on, we're going to continue with that, either on an even keel, but we're certainly not going to reduce by any great amount.
Good point. Thank you. Grant?
Yeah, what that's gonna miss though is the impact of the CLA. I think that, and this is me speculating, but I think that one of the reasons the CLA is what it is because of the impact that COVID has had on home prices being out of sync to the appraised values. And no matter how we account for that within our budget, those low CLAs, we can't account for that. And that may be more impactful than anything that's going on in our budget right now.
Yeah, that is true.
And those actually may get revisited. I think, I don't know exactly what the numbers are, but I think there are limits on those. That if you go below, it prompts some sort of a review. And I don't know if any of our communities are in that situation or not, but those could be revisited in future years also.
Yeah, we're getting close, Grant, because once you get below 80%, you start.
Is that the number? Okay.
That's the number for the CLA. You get into reassessment.
I knew there was a number. I didn't know exactly what it was. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, well, hearing none, we'll move on. If you folks get a chance to look at that presentation again, it's in your board packet and you have any comments, send them forward to Bill. Can't guarantee we're going to incorporate everything you're suggesting in the presentation, but it's good to hear from everyone. And certainly if you see any typos or errors, please let us know. Thank you. Going on to item 7 on the agenda, we have the COVID update. Bill's going to give us that update. Tell us it's good.
Well, okay, I'll tell you it's good. How about that? You told me to tell you it's good. I'm optimistic. Let me say that. I'm optimistic. I'm getting, I went and did some homework on calculating numbers, and in different buildings, different things are happening. I would say at 3 of our buildings besides SATEC, we're starting to see some drop in case numbers. That is happening. It's hard to know if it's a trend yet. Last week was really high as we moved into test at home from test to stay, and providing testing kits to people. I know we're pretty close to the bottom of what we have left in testing kits, and we know that some are on the way, but we've also heard that it might be a little bit of a wait. But at SATEC, we still have high numbers in both the staff and the students for number of cases. So the biggest thing I can say is stay home when sick. If you have symptoms, stay home. If you're questioning that, that's the best thing you can do. We've had this week as many classrooms impacted as we did last week, and we're only on Wednesday at SATEC. So they're working really hard over there. I see Katie on this meeting. She and I touched base about it today. It's getting draining for the staff, but they're doing their best over there. I was over there for dismissal, and I saw a lot of smiles, so through masks. So I'm assuming smiles, but I saw a lot of eyes that looked like they were smiling. And kindergartners picking us all up. This past week, our surveillance testing caught the most number of cases we've ever caught in 1 week. And it wasn't just by a little bit. So we are catching the surveillance testing. I hope that keeps going, but the state has the call on whether that's going to keep going or be terminated. In some places, I see glimpses within our staff of lowering anxiety, and some places not so much. So I think it's really getting used to that COVID is now is not the responsibility of schools anymore. That's the big switch we've made in the past week and a half, and it's still taking an adjustment for all of us, including myself. You know, we're no longer, you know, we're giving out tests, but we're trusting the parents to, and the kids to stay home when they need to, and our staff as well. And there's a few staff members that have had to be, they want to come and do work, and we're like, the best thing you can do for us is get better. So, get better. And I had to say that to a member of our leadership team too. So, get better. And I just want to, you know, again, I've said it many times before, but really thank our staff. You know, everyone's working really hard. I have to say there are things that I know I wanted to work on in the past month and a half, and we haven't been able to. And my hope is that we get through February break and we can come back and start to pick up some of those pieces of work that we wanted to do. I'm hopeful. I know I'm kind of sounding like a governor, but I'm hopeful that this is a trend, but I can't say it is yet. That's what I have for you, Nelda. Otherwise, I'd just be recycling things I've said to the board in previous meetings.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions for Bill related to COVID and his update? I've been coughing since January 1st and I do not have COVID. So all those other infections are still out there, just so you know. Next item on the agenda is implicit bias and anti-racism training. So Bill, I'm sure this is on your list of things we wanted to talk about, but didn't get to in the last month and a half, but I'll let you give your report.
No, thanks, Nelda. You did say that very well. It's very high on my part. I have touched base with restorative practices partners, with Lisa and Margaret, to see where they're at. But they've been a little leery of pulling people together, even somewhat virtually with the design team, just because of where everyone's at and trying to get through the pandemic. I did make a note to myself this week to touch back with her and see if we can get a timeline put together, and when we can get back to that work. And I hope at the next meeting I'll report to you a timeline. That's my goal. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions? Okay, next item on the agenda is setting goals. So this is, I'm just going to try to frame this a little bit. For me, this is sort of what comes first, the chicken or the egg. You know, we have a school mission, we have school values. We've had some semblance of goals in the past when we first became a unified school district, but we've talked about reviewing our mission. We've talked about reviewing our core values and our vision. And anything that I've read about any of this stuff, there's like a hierarchy that you have to follow, right? Because you got to have your vision before you can figure out how you're going to get there. And then what are the things you're going to look at? And then how are you going to measure them? And you can't eat that elephant, you know, all at once. You got to do it one bite at a time. So having said that, we still need to do all this work. And I think we need a sort of, like a work plan that I think Bill and the leadership team can help us build to give us a roadmap on how we get from here to there. Bill, you want to take over?
Yeah. So it's trying to take a look at our governance. I had given you a proposed roadmap with what I gave you at the meeting the first meeting in January, and how we could do that, and then looking at putting together a group to do that work, and a subgroup that can work on that, that's made up of leadership team to lead the work, but to make sure it has broad stakeholder engagement. The folks that I'm concerned about are our community members, parents, and students engaged in that. So that the steering committee doesn't say what the goals and the mission are. They design the process to make sure stakeholders are engaged, and then draft something, and then solicit feedback from those both stakeholder groups to make sure it's correct. I think that would give us a really strong foundation, and it may be the same things that we have right now, or it may not, but I think it's worth that relook. And that's going to tie in with our governance subcommittee, and maybe Grant, you've done a nice job of talking about that before, of the different, two different models we're looking at, how goals tie in with that.
And it's my understanding that that subcommittee is meeting tomorrow night, is that correct?
Yeah, the governance subcommittee is meeting tomorrow night.
And then they'll present at the next meeting, is that correct?
Yeah, we're ready to present on the governing for results governance model. Anytime. We did that presentation a couple weeks ago. That's finalized. I think we'll be ready to present on policy governance either the next meeting or the meeting after, depending on the progress we make tomorrow. And then we'll have our full sort of overview of governance as it could apply to the board. It'll be nice to dovetail that in with goals, because regardless of what governance model we go with, one of the primary objectives will be to establish some goals, and then work that in with whatever other policies we choose to implement.
Right. So looking at, I'm sorry, looking at our next steps, the governance report is probably the next thing we need to start the ball rolling on all of this. Is that right, Bill?
Well, I think that's the question of, how you want to do this, is to look at the governance report, or do you want to start at the same time, do you want to talk about goals? Because they're going to be in both, they're called two different things. One calls them goals and one calls them ends, but they're the same, it's the same thing. So my piece,
I think it would be great to pull a subcommittee together and start talking about the goals, because we have to make sure that, I mean, we probably need a little bit of making sure that we're using the same language the same way, and then making sure we use, that whole SMART goal concept, right? So that you can have a measurable outcome, and also not try to do too many things at once, because I think we can get a little crazy if we try to do that. Joanna?
About board goals right now, or are we talking, because I'm now I'm getting confused. Bill, you were talking about having the leadership team take the lead on that, so I need some
it's a
clarification.
combination of administrators and board members taking the lead to look at organizational goals.
All right, organizational goals or board goals? Because
Well, let me ask you this. What is your definition of board goals?
I guess it would be, actually, I sent something to Nilda today, so let me get that for you.
Okay, because this is the great discussion doing it, because it's really about, when you say board goals, one person might interpret it different than another. So it's a really good, place to ask. And organizational goals, are they one and the same?
That's what I kind of meant about definitions. I think that when we think of the word goal, do we have goals already? I mean, if you look at the mission, you can extrapolate little goals out of it by just switching the words around, right? A little bit. But I don't think
not
that's
really measurable.
I don't think that's what we mean. And yeah, those are not necessarily measurable unless you add language to be able to measure it with some sort of barometer. But Grant's chafing here to say something, so let's go.
Yeah, so the various governance models, they all include ways of monitoring progress towards goals and setting goals, whether they're SMART goals or more open-ended, and the how you do everything. I think will be, Bill, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that'll all be addressed with our governance. Deciding what the goals are, that's something that I think would be really well, left to a subcommittee, like what we're talking about. And then it may come back on the board and Bill to determine how those get implemented based on our governance model. The other thing that's built into these governance models is a distinction between organization goals, meaning the goals of MRUSD as it applies to like education, as well, and then the differentiate that from the board goals, which is how we conduct our own business, and how we check to make sure that we've been effective and that sort of thing. And there's two different cycles. One where we evaluate the progress of the organization, meaning the work that Bill's doing with the teachers and the kids, and everything that we consider to be education. And then another cycle where we evaluate how effective we've been in governing. And I think both of those cycles exist for really any governance system that we could choose to implement that it would be on top of what we're doing right now, which is whatever our formal obligation is to work with.
Well, that sounds good. So maybe it is the next step then to get the governance presentations and stuff.
That would make it clearer for everybody. Yeah, we can move faster on that and try to get that in place before we set up the goal subcommittee. I don't think though that if we're just talking about content, the goals that subcommittee would come up with would change dramatically. The language may, to your point, we call them a goal or if we call them an end, and if it's worth, having that governance report to align on language, just keep things less confusing more moving forward, we can certainly do that.
And that's what we need to kind of hammer out, I think, the language, so that once we're discussing where we're at with the goal, we're not spending 15 minutes trying to figure out whose goal was that and what were we looking at and stuff. So I think
Tonight with Grant, both systems have policies that talk about board operations. So board goals for monitoring how the board does their work. What they both call for is the organization to work with stakeholders to develop the organizational goals.
Right, but board goals, I mean, to my knowledge, at least, is that are things that, there are like 2 to 3 a year where you're focusing your efforts, where you're focusing your questions, your focus. Yeah, I'm sorry. Your focus on your questions and your focal point in terms of accountability and whether if it's policy or if it's shifting finances, but that is I guess that's what I would think that board goals are. We're going to be we're going to be really developing our communication this year, and we're going to make sure that we are communicating well to our our individual and larger MRUSD community. And how are we going to do that? We're going to make sure that we have open coffee sessions with, different people 4 times a year or something like that. So, board goals to me are different than organizational goals. You have a CIP plan, you have, I see that as different. How we're supposed to be running our how we're supposed to be communicating and following through with our end of the bargain is the board
But
goals.
I hear you, but couldn't the goal be something like, interact with the community 4 times a year, and then how we get there is to have coffees 4 times a year, or to have cocktail parties, or whatever, ways to connect. So then you end up with the checklist that you can say, we did it 3 out of 4 times
Yes.
the year that what we said or something. So I think you can have that umbrella statement and then the sort of how you got there underneath, right? Grant?
Absolutely. I was just saying that what I was trying to say was that it wouldn't be a subcommittee of the leadership team and students and parents. I mean, that's different. That's when you're talking about the organizational goals. That's not what you're talking about, the school board goals.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's exactly right. The board goals, when we evaluate board goals and set board goals, that is going to be much more limited in scope. It's something we can do internally, but probably in a public setting, but amongst ourselves. And when we actually do the review, it'll probably feel more like an audit than anything else, which is exactly what you're saying. We set these goals. Did we meet them? If we didn't meet them, maybe a minor investigation into why we didn't, and maybe some action coming for how we do so better in the future, right? It's that kind of a cycle.
Thank you. All right, anybody else related to this? So we'll look forward to at least part of this presentation coming up at the next board meeting. So make sure that gets on the agenda, please. All right. Moving on to item 8, new business. 8A is new legislative open meeting law. You have that in attachment 8A, and Bill, I'm going to let you speak to that.
Just wanted to let everyone know, we talked about this a little bit at the last meeting, that about 2 weeks ago, Act 78 was signed into law, which allowed for elections without petitions, for names to be put on the ballot, and for public bodies to hold fully remote meetings and not to have a designated physical space or physical posting. Doesn't mean you can't do it, just allows you to go this way. And for informational meetings, can be done remotely as well. So I want the board to kind of understand, we've been doing a hybrid meeting right now, and I'm not trying to push it one way or another. I'm really just trying to give you some information for you to have a conversation about this. But that, if we have it via Zoom, just as we've been doing, it's putting up the links publicly, allowing people to come into our meetings, to have the business conducted in front of the public, and have in the last paragraph, school boards may post meeting agendas or notices of a special meeting to designated electronic locations in lieu of a physical location. Aaron and I have talked, we will post them in the physical locations anyway. We think that that's just a good thing to do. But wanted to let you know of this. And I didn't know, Nilda, if you wanted to do anything more or just for me to provide the information.
So just for my clarification, prior to this change, we had to have the opportunity for the public to show up
That's correct.
face-to-face, which is why you guys were holding the session at the central office. With this change, there is not the requirement for that.
That's right, but doesn't mean we can't do it. It just means.
No, I think certainly we can continue to do it, but the requirement is no longer necessary. That's the big change, right?
Right, and Act 78, this goes until January 15th of 2023.
Okay. All right. Any discussion?
Oh, yes. I'd like to say something quickly.
Okay, Joanna?
If we did make the decision to do that and not to have anybody available at central office, I would, just as you're doing a great job with the budget, making sure that this information is getting out widely in a variety of ways, I would like to propose making sure that we put the school board, access to the school board meetings in a more widespread way. I think that I still don't know how easily accessible these meetings are to all people. you kind of have to go and dig. So I think that an easier link available to people in various ways, I think would be more accessible to our communities.
Mhm. Mhm. Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, I've just got an issue with this in that we require kids to go to school and they wear face masks, I understand. We require the staff to go to school and wear face masks, I understand. Yet we choose to stay home and do our meeting that way. And I just find that as leaders, I'm not sure that's good leading by example. And that's why I come every day. And that's just a comment. I'm not putting pressure on anyone else. Everyone has to do what they feel is safe. I'm just saying that's what I feel. That's why I come here every meeting.
Thank you. Grant?
I work at a school currently with, 300 and more than 350 people, and I feel like I'm doing the safe thing by not going out in public when I don't need to, because I've got to go back to school every single day, and I want to make sure that I'm safe and I'm not transmitting anything further than I need to. So that's why I stay home.
Right. Grant?
Yeah. Are these meetings available by dial-in only? Like, could you get on here with a telephone if you didn't have internet access? That's my only concern with that, not having the office is,
I
in
think
this
you have to
area,
have-
internet.
The answer is yes, you can dial in remotely through a telephone.
Okay.
I'm not sure how well we publicize that, Grant. We could probably do a better job, but.
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of, it's hard if you got to post the telephone number on the internet for people that don't have internet, right?
Right.
But that would be my only concern with not having a central office open would be if anyone wanted to come that didn't have the internet access, in our kind of equity-based system here. So.
Right. Well, I mean, I can definitely see both sides of it. So, right now we have the opportunity to do either. And I would say maybe till we get through, town meeting, we should continue in this process, see how the numbers look and stuff, and then maybe reevaluate in March how to proceed, unless someone has a better suggestion or a different suggestion. Does that work for folks? Hearing nothing, I'm going to assume you all think what I said was wonderful, and that's how we're going to do it. All right. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a B leave request. We have a paraeducator, Brianna Lawler, who's at St. Albans City School, who would like to be on leave to the second week of May. We need a motion to approve this request for discussion, please.
So moved.
Thanks, Al. Is there a second? Thanks, Jack. Bill, can you give us some info without breaking any HIPAA rules?
Well, this is a maternity leave, so I think I can say that to say congratulations
Oh,
to
okay.
the employee. And
Any administration supports the request?
oh, totally, yes. Sorry, I should have said that. We totally support it.
Okay, anybody have any questions, or can we take a vote? All right, let's take a vote. Everyone's here now, so Al,
Yep.
Alicia,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Katie,
Yes.
Joanna,
Yes.
Nina,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes?
Grant,
Yes.
Susan.
Yes.
Thank you. And Nilda, yes. Motion carries. Congratulations. Next item on the agenda is the MOU for elementary teachers to substitute during prep period. So I guess I need a little background before we can figure out what the motion is going to say. So Bill, can you give us some background?
Yes, in our current negotiated contract at BFA and the Tech Center, when a secondary teacher substitutes for another teacher who's out during their prep period, they receive a $25 stipend for that work. And our elementary teachers have been doing a lot of giving of their time. And I want to say this was something that we just felt that was more equitable to our pre-K 8 teachers. If they're giving up their prep period, because then they're going to be doing their prepping at home after time, that we pay them as we do our high school teachers. So I worked with the association to draft this, and this is a this year side letter to represent that for our elementary colleagues. And it's for professional staff only.
Okay, so is it gonna end up being a side letter? Is that what you said?
It's a side letter, that's why I need board approval to the contract. It's what we already do in the high school, we're just extending it down to the pre-K.
So can we approve it in concept and then approve the side letter once we see it?
You have it, that's what you had, that we put the side letter up today.
Oh, it's in the packet? Oh, duh, sorry. I kept looking, thinking it was an MOU and you,
It's a side letter, it's called an MOU. Joanna?
okay. All right, I think Joanna has a question.
Yeah, so feels like I am definitely in favor of it. I just looking at the can of worms here. So what about when people go and do a duty for someone? You know, you sub for duties as well. How is this going to be?
People use their preparation time to do something.
Yeah,
So-
right. And sometimes people are using, instead of prepping, right? They might be going to do a duty. They might be subbing
Or-
for, being for lunch or for recess or for, you know what I mean? Like it's maybe not their entire prep period, but it's going to be 20 minutes of it.
I think we have it covered with what's there, but that's, and I know the association's in agreement with how it's written.
You feel comfortable with it? No?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so
I'm
we can,
Yeah, for further
I'm not-
discussion, I move
Not in
that,
support. My question is just around the supervision of it. I mean, just figuring, it's a lot to document.
point of order, can I place this on I move that we approve the request.
you move that we approve the side letter as submitted?
Yep,
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you.
now we can discuss it.
Well, now that I realize it's gonna be a motion for the side letter, yes, thank you. Any more questions? Grant, did you have a question or did you just wanna,
Was gonna second.
thank you. Any other questions? Looks like we're ready to
Quick
move.
question, I guess. It seems pretty straightforward. The fact that it isn't already in place seems odd. Is there a reason why we don't already do this?
I think it's more tradition and Katie's, we're not gonna, I don't know, we wanna go all into that, but it's basically the merging of the contracts when they were merged and never came into the elementary school. And I see,
And probably the usage has been a little higher now due to COVID, so it
Oh,
certainly
yeah.
called attention to it.
yeah,
So, all right, I guess we're gonna take a vote on that side letter that is in the packet. Al,
Yep.
Alicia,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Katie,
Yes.
Joanna,
Yes.
Nina,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes?
Grant,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Nilda, yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 9. We're on the warrants. I need a motion to approve the warrants, acknowledging that passage of this motion will act as authorization and signature of any individual board members participating remotely.
So moved.
Thanks, Al. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Jack. Any discussion related to the warrants? Hearing none, we're gonna move on to the vote. Al,
Yes.
Alicia,
Yes.
Jack,
Yes.
Katie,
Yes.
Joanna,
Yes.
Nina,
Yes.
Peter,
Yeah.
Grant,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Nelda, yes. Thank you all for that. Next item on the agenda is superintendent's report. Bill?
So I have two things to talk to you about, both of them informational, but I'll be glad to take any questions or comments. First, I want to thank Alexis White. I think Alexis may or may not be here. I don't see the whole screen. She hosted a parent night for the Castle Standards, unfortunately, on January 25th. I know we had it out there on social media. We had a few parents, a few people show up, and we're hoping a little better attendance, but I know we'll be doing more work with that to engage our community. And the second one that I want to announce is on February 10th at 6 p.m. Amy Brewer is going to be hosting a parent night over Zoom on vaping products and their impact on our students to help educate parents and anyone in the community. That'll be at 6 p.m. on February 10th. You'll see more about that out in the school announcements, and it'll be via Zoom. We asked people to RSVP, so we have that all set up. So those are just a couple parent engagement pieces that are going on. I don't want to say everything's COVID because there are a few things we've been trying to do. And I want to thank Joan for putting together that vaping informational night for parents. She's been working with Amy Brewer on that up at Northwest Medical Center. The last thing I want to take a little bit more time to talk about is go ahead.
Susan, do you have a question related to that? Yes, where is that going to be held again?
It's going to be on Zoom, and we're putting out the information across our daily announcements, and we'll put it on our social media and all that. I just got it from Joan literally like an hour before the meeting, so Joan sent it out to leadership, so I think I'm preempting whatever our messaging announcements publicity system is on that. But I want the board to know about that.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, the last thing, and I want to take a little bit more time with, is the Fairfield Community School principal hiring process. Casey Provost will be leading that process through the first and second rounds of interviews. And Casey either has, I forgot to ask him today to make sure I know it's on his plan to do, so he either has or is planning to send out information to the community, to the staff, and to the parents and students about forums to be held to gather information on what qualities we want to see in our next Fairfield Center principal. And for that, we'll have input forums that are happening on February 8th. They'll be working with staff. We haven't figured out the student time yet. And then later that night at 5 to 6 p.m., there'll be a parent community member one. He's going to be putting out information all over if it hasn't been out already. As the same process that I hosted for the BFA principal, and I think got us a great principal in Brett Blanchard, we'll be taking folks that are part of those forums to be representative, to be members of the first round interview committee, and take the information that we get from those forums that say what qualities we're looking for in a principal and skills and characteristics to develop and review our applicants. We've had the posting up for a little more than a week, and we're getting good response. And what I hear from my colleagues in other districts, I actually am very pleased, because I know that some principals in Vermont are positions that are open, they're barely getting 1 or 2 candidates, and we have over 10. So that's great. So I'm very hopeful. The interview committee will select and come down to 2. They'll interview folks right before February break, and then after February break, we'll have 2 finalists come back for on-site half days to meet kids, staff, central office staff, interview with me for the first time. And our hope is by the second meeting in March, we'll have a candidate to present to the board. I can't always guarantee that timeline because things happen, but that's the timeline that we're on right now. So, Nilda, I'd be glad to take any questions or comments from the board. But you all have seen that process play out. Well, not all of you, but many of you have seen that process play out as we did it at BFA. And we'll have public forums when we're down to the finalists as well.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay. Anything else, Bill?
That's all I have.
Thank you. Board announcements. Anyone? What did the groundhog say? 6 more weeks of winter?
Yeah.
Bill saw his shadow and we got 6 more weeks of winter.
Yeah, but you know, his wife divorced him because he's a big fat liar, so. And her name is Phyllis. Go ahead, Grant.
Just a formal request to get the governance presentation on the agenda for next time.
Thank you. That's right here on my agenda for future meetings, governance
Perfect.
presentation.
Thank you.
So we'll definitely get it on there. Any other agenda items for future meetings? Okay, there's no need to go into an executive session. Is there any further business to come before the board? Seeing none, I'm going to adjourn this meeting at 7:11 p.m. and the recording is going to get turned off.